The average across the United States of America, the average housewife, we are talking a human being who does not have an outside job, a human being who is raising the next generation, doing laundry, running errands, preparing meals, meal planning, doing the grocery shopping, making the doctor's appointments. We all know how endless this list is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the average human being doing that work is worth $175,000 to the family every year. Every year. That is what that work is worth. And isn't it interesting that we as women have all bought into the idea that that doesn't count?
Hi, and welcome to episode 117 of Science Careers for Moms. I'm your host, Anoki Kapasi. This is the show for high-achieving moms in STEM who feel torn between being a serious scientist and also wanting to be a present mom. And on this show, you learn how to make confident career decisions without sacrificing all of the other parts of yourself. And so I want to ask you, have you ever had that gut punch moment where you realize you're doing everything right, but you're still feeling exhausted and somehow still underpaid? Or worse, you're actually paying to work. That is with your time, money, energy, and peace. Well, today I'm joined by Sarah Walton, a wealth consciousness coach, pay advocate, and host of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. She focuses on putting more money in the hands of more women. This episode is actually your permission slip to stop overgiving at work, because Sarah gives us the language for the moments that you need it the most, where you can stop negotiating against yourself and start advocating for yourself, including for better pay, in a way that actually works with your life as a mom. So in this conversation, we talk about how to stop that apology reflex and finding that power within us to start saying yes or no when we want. This episode is chock full of entertaining and moving stories, including Sarah's famous grocery store story and also one of Sarah's powerful moments in corporate. I got to learn new terms that clarify so much, like the overgiver tax, wealth consciousness, and spoiler alert, that is not all about money, and also what infinite money is. So this is a really fun one, and there's so many golden nuggets in this conversation, you're definitely going to want to listen to the end. All right, here we go. Welcome to Science Careers for Moms, the podcast for women in STEM who want to have both a meaningful career and be there for the important things in life. Hi, I'm Anoki Kapasi, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. I'm passionate about helping moms in science and tech build careers that fit their whole life. Join me for honest conversations with other scientists who've gone through the same career decisions you're facing right now. You'll also get actionable frameworks that cut through burnout, work-life balance myths, and circular decision-making. If you're ready to make STEM career decisions that let you be an amazing mom, you're in the right place. Let's get into today's episode. I am thrilled to introduce Sarah Walton as today's special guest. Sarah is the coach that women call when they're done with people-pleasing and pretending that they're not ready. Her clients are often the most credentialed women in their workplace, including women in STEM who've spent years proving their worth and still aren't charging for it. She offers a spicy mix of mindset, sales, and truth bombs. She's here to help women get rich while staying real. Sarah Walton is the host of the Game On Girlfriend podcast, a show that helps high-achieving women advocate for pay, scope, flexibility, and visibility in high-pressure cultures. So, Sarah, is there anything that you want to add to that or correct?
No, that was perfect. I think, one, I'm just so happy to be here. I think there's so many women who are so freaking amazing. And just because of our own conditioning and the lives that we've had and these experiences we've had, we kind of just forget how awesome we are. And so I'm here to remind us all that we're pretty freaking great.
Amen to that. That is definitely a message I can get behind. Yeah, I think we have our own specialties here, you and I, but I think there's a lot of overlap, and that is definitely one of those.
For sure. For sure. I love it.
Well, you know, Sarah, you work really closely with high-achieving women beyond science and tech. Obviously, I focus and help a lot of women in science and tech. But I would say that most women in STEM would probably classify themselves as high achieving women. And they're also really highly credentialed. I think that comes with a really good work ethic.
Yeah.
There's a certain mindset that comes with that kind of work. And I believe that that is the key to our success. It's gotten us to this point, especially in science and tech fields that over delivery, the attention to detail, focus on high quality is a really important skill to have. I myself have found myself going above and beyond for clients. And
Mm-hmm.
while modesty is good, I think that now at this stage in our careers, it can actually lead us to being undervalued and underpaid. And I know that that is an area of focus for you. I think that these qualities can be a double-edged sword and
Mm.
sometimes serve us and sometimes not, maybe at different parts of our career. So, what I want to ask you is why do we, as women, chronically find ourselves in positions where we're under earning and over functioning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is the word. It's overfunctioning is the word. And there's actually a phrase that was coined by an author. She's a psychologist named Terry Cole. She wrote a book called Boundary Boss. I don't love the title, but the book is fantastic. And the concept that she really shares is called high functioning codependence. And it's that second piece, that codependence piece that I think can really trip us up. And it's in everything that we do. So, what the heck does that mean? So, this codependence piece starts when we're really young, when we are conditioned to put our needs second. So, it can be anything from where's that pretty smile when we're upset when we're little, or don't cry. Those little tiny things start to add up over time. And we start to learn that what we feel, what we think, what we know isn't as important as other people's comfort. And the more we make other people comfortable, usually by overfunctioning or over delivering, the more we're rewarded. Right. And it really tends to be the rub of this is we're also conditioned. It really tends to come even from other women. Right. You
Mm-hmm.
see that woman who's running around like crazy. She's doing the parent teacher stuff. She's doing the lunches. She's on the car line. She's running around with the kids after she's running her own business. She's a great wife. Like everybody's like, oh my God, she's so selfless.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that great? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
what a horrible phrase that is. First of all, like, let's just kind of put that in its place for a hot second is like selfless. Like, we're actually giving accolades to people for not having a sense of self.
Yeah.
Whoa. But it really is what's rewarded. And it causes this codependence in us because we want to be the person that people talk about like that. We want to be the person where everyone goes, oh my God, she's so amazing. So we start buying into this and we get codependent. We need the accolades of clients. We need the accolades of bosses. We need the accolades of peers and even our own children. It can turn into, and it becomes this really vicious cycle where we never feel okay until somebody outside of us says, you're doing great. Then we're okay, but we're only okay for a little bit because then we need that accolade again. So we overfunction again in order to get the accolades. And this is where sort of the spiritual work for me comes in my viewpoint, I call it spiritual, but everybody's got a different belief system. So if you believe in God, a higher power, the universe, it doesn't really matter. I think this philosophy really supports women in breaking this codependence piece. And the idea is that you are here on this planet, your soul contract, your agreement with the universe, whatever you want to call it, you are here to deliver on that. End of list, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
your talent is being really funny, I'm going to assert you're here to like spread joy and laughter, right? If your talent is really seeing that problem in a way no one else can solve it, it just makes
Mm-hmm.
sense to you. It flies off the page. That's what you're here to do. And your only job is to keep that agreement. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to be on task, is to be on assignment for you. And beautiful part of that is it usually brings us joy. And then what I'd like to say is you stay on assignment. You keep your agreement with the universe, and then you send the invoice to the universe. You're like, listen, I'm doing my job. The rest of it's up to you. And that way, if you show up for a client, you do your job, you do what you're here to do. The rest of it is none of your business,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are way overstepping. We do it with our children, like they can't possibly fail. And it's like, no, no, no. If a child doesn't fall when they're learning how to walk, they don't learn how to walk, right? You have to
Yeah.
let them fail. It's part of the
Yeah.
growth process, right? So we don't want to overstep because of this codependence. Instead, we constantly look at us and go, am I keeping my agreement with the universe? Am I showing up as me? Am I using the gifts I was given? Am I on assignment? Outside of that, you have no other work. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can continue to bring yourself home and be like, was I the most loving today? Am I really proud of who I was? The rest of it doesn't matter. The rest of it, you send the invoice to the universe. And what I love about that is there's so many women who are so talented and so great, especially in their own businesses, is they're like, oh, but I have to charge for this, or I'm scared to charge, whatever. Don't even worry about that. just do your job, show up, send the invoice to the universe. And I'm not saying don't charge people. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is the emotional, the
Mm-hmm.
financial, the physical, the toil, the struggle. That's not your job. Your
Mm-hmm.
job is to show up and do your job. And part of that means slow mornings. Like take a beat in the morning. Do not pick up your phone. That's not
Mm-hmm.
serving you. That's the rest of the world telling you what it wants from you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this coming home moment that we need so badly every day, we've just given up. Right. And I think that's part of the soul contract is to come home every day, every morning.
Mm-hmm.
What would make today amazing? What is my job today? What do I need today? And actually giving ourselves the moments to find that. And that's when we get inspired to take the action. That's when all of a sudden it's like, actually, I'm going to charge $10,000 for that project, not five, because you're clear, because you are on assignment. All of a sudden it gets crystal clear. And then you send the invoice for the correct amount, meaning it matches, it's congruent with the
Mm-hmm.
work that you're providing because you're in such a clear, beautiful space. And
Mm-hmm.
so we can operate from that instead of, am I okay yet? Do you like what I'm doing? Is this
Mm-hmm.
okay? Are you mad?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden we don't have to worry about that because that's the universe's job. That's God's job to deal with all of that. That's way overstepping on our part, right? Like that's not our business. Our business is to show up as the best version of ourselves. So I hope I answered your question about why we overfunction and how we can work on that.
Yeah, no, that was great. I am understanding from what you said that it really is getting clarity about what your version of success is and not operating off of other people's definition and understanding what your purpose is and being authentic to who you are and
Mm-hmm.
what you want. We keep getting these messages, these societal messages, like you said, that women, moms are supposed to be selfless, and I think that yeah, those do a disservice to us. And what you just described was kind of a reframe. So it was the why and also a little bit of how to move forward and past that. So that was great. I come from the world of science and tech, and so it's pervasive, this issue
Mm-hmm.
of over operating, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and often being sidelined, especially once you become a mom. And I was just wondering if it was specific to science and the science and tech world, or if this is something that high achieving women in general experience. And it sounds like this is something that extends beyond just a specific kind of career.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all of us. And it's in so many different facets of our lives, especially once we become moms. It's
Yeah.
literally in every facet of our lives. We've been trained, conditioned,
Hmm.
right, to make sure everyone else is taken care of first,
Yeah.
to our detriment.
Hmm. And maybe some of that's biology that kicks in when you become a mom.
Mhm.
You're adding more of that care and responsibility, and the stakes are high. You're
Mhm.
raising kids to become, capable people in the world. And what I find interesting, and I think this is kind of the crux of what I end up working on, is that as high achieving women, we generally probably are a little more attuned to operating this way, like you
Mhm.
described. We fall prey to these messages. And when you become a mom, it's often at that inflection point in that upswing of our career,
Mhm.
right? We're often career oriented for a good early part of our lives. And
Mhm.
we maybe even put off having families. And then we become moms at that point where we probably feel to ourselves, at least, that we've earned that flexibility, maybe being able to charge more, having more authority in the work that we do. And once we become moms, it's almost like we start becoming apologetic.
Mhm.
Like, oh, now I'm a mom. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I have
Mhm.
to X, Y, or Z. And it's like all those years and training that we put in don't even count for anything. And
Mhm.
so we give even more and we undervalue ourselves even more. I hope that no one hears this and that the message is motherhood is some sort of penalty. I believe it's like the best experience, the most important job I've ever had, if you can call it a job. So that is not at all what I'm saying, but I think that everything you're saying has even more weight
Yes.
to the mom version of us. So,
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And I think what an interesting thing in our society, right? What an interesting thing that raising the next generation of human beings doesn't matter. I mean, it is a job. Of course, it's a job. It's a full-time job.
mhm,
If you actually, I don't know if you know this, this is a wonderful stat. I love sharing this. This is adjusted-ish for inflation. I think it's actually higher now, but the average across the United States of America, the average housewife, we are talking a human being who does not have an outside job, a human being who is raising the next generation, doing laundry, running errands, preparing meals, meal planning, doing the grocery shopping, making the doctor's appointments. We all know how endless this list is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the average human being doing that work is worth $175,000 to the family every year.
Mm-hmm.
Every year. That is what that work is worth. And isn't it interesting that we as women have all bought into the idea that that doesn't count? It does count. If you were to disappear tomorrow, your family has to come up with $175,000 a year to replace you. That's real. That's financial. That's not even the emotional work, like all the other stuff that we do, the lesson teaching, the morals, the reading to, all those other things. There is so much in that. And that we have all bought into the idea that it doesn't count is fascinating to me. And I think that's something I really want to fight for all of us for, is like, let's question that. Let's just take a minute and wonder how much of that we've internalized. How much do we believe it doesn't really count because there's not a job description somewhere? How much do we think that doesn't really count because you can't put it on Indeed or wherever the heck you want to put it, right? That is not accurate. And I'm really out to have us start to question that, because it will be up to women for each other to redefine that. Now, if that is what someone chooses to do with their life, our next generation thanks you so much, because it is invaluable work. And right now we've seen the result of a lot of world leaders who weren't parented, right? That's a problem. It causes a massive problem, and everyone pays the price. So I really want to work to reframe that. And for any woman listening who said, oh my gosh, I just apologized yesterday because, little Timmy was sick and I had to go, like, whatever, is we don't apologize anymore. We say, I've got to go. You don't have to say why. It's none of their business, right? Again, that's the overreaching. And I know I sound angry as I say this, but it's because it's so important to me that it lands. I'm actually not angry. I'm adamant that we understand what has been in this conditioning and how damaging it is. And it's not okay. It's absolutely not okay. And it's going to be up to us to pick up the mantle and say, I'm going to need to leave today at 2. Zero explanation. There's no explanation needed. It's no one's business. You are an adult, and they've hired you to be an employee there, which means they trust you to make decisions for yourself and your life. And it's none of their business what those decisions are. And once we can start to own the power of that, all of this angst around apologizing can go away. And the amount of energy that's available to us when we aren't worried about that, oh my gosh, it's so great. All of a sudden, you can perform higher, and it wasn't even hard.
Right.
Enjoy being with your children instead of being worried about work and feeling guilty. And then when you're at work, you feel guilty about the kids. All of a sudden, that can start to dissipate because you refuse to buy into, it is a false narrative, that $175,000 a year job doesn't, quote unquote, count. Oh, and P.S., it's a job you're doing while you're doing other jobs.
Yeah.
So critical. And you get to own that. You get to own that and say, not only am I not going to overfunction around this, I'm not going to apologize for it either. I'm just going to do it, and y'all can watch. And every time there's a woman who does that, we are like silently giving permission to other women to do the same. And I'm always so moved when I see a woman who says, no, sorry, I can't make that. And then stops talking. I get so excited. I'm like, there she is. There's the power. There's the ownership. She knows she's on task. She knows she's on assignment and she's doing her job. The rest of it's none of her business. And the freedom that comes from that and the joy that comes from that in living your own life again without exhaustion is so beautiful. And so that's why I get so adamant, is I want every woman on planet Earth to feel that joy. This is like, these years fly by. My kids are now 16 and 19, right? These years fly by so fast. And not one of us looks back and says, yeah, but I wish I'd made that marketing meeting. Or, yeah, I really wish I'd put in an extra 2 hours on that one thing I was working on. Nobody thinks that. And so to do that to ourselves in the moment is such a disservice. And I really want other women to hear me and go, I'm going to try this out and see what happens. Let's see what happens when you don't overreach or try to control what everybody else is thinking, because it's not your job.
Yeah, exactly. The world of science and tech, the culture, it really wasn't designed for caregivers. And so to sit there and try to change the system, I mean, sure, there is some policy work and things that can be done. But what I like about what you're saying is, instead of sitting in that sort of sense of, victimhood, there is something you can do. you can kind of put yourself in that driver's seat and say, hey, I'm going to change. I can't change the system necessarily, but I will change the way I'm going to operate within this system. And
That's
I
right.
think that that is definitely useful advice that we can take on, especially in really high demanding sort of knowledge work fields. And so, I was wondering if this is something that you experienced. Was there a moment in your career where maybe you realized that you were making decisions that were operating against who you are or what you wanted? And what was your experience? Is that kind of what fueled the work that you do? And if you came to any realizations, kind of what changed after that?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a great story for this. You have a second? Because it's
Sure.
just like, I'll
That's
try
what
to
we're
make
here
it
for.
fast. It started
No,
when
go
I
for
was
it.
5. So I'm always like, I'm going to take you back. But okay. So yeah, when I was 5, I was watching the Nutcracker on TV with my mom. And I did not know what dance was. I did not know what I was watching, but I was like, Mom, I want to do that. I don't know what it is, but I want that. Right. I just loved this idea of dancing. And so for all of my childhood, I really wanted to dance. And we couldn't afford dance lessons. That was not in the cards. Um, but what I did do was learn a lot from watching MTV and all those videos that I know I'm older than you. So Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, all these women who were
Oh
like
no, that's my
incredible
era. I'm
dancers, baby. Yeah, that's like, let's go, right? They're so good. Throwing chairs, dancing with cartoon mice, the whole thing. Anyway, it was so fun. But that's really how I learned to dance was by watching MTV at the time. And I really wanted to try out for my high school dance team because where I grew up in Sandy, Utah, that was a really big deal. Like if you could make the dance team, you like had made it, right? And I was so excited. And I had older brothers and I'd watch them, their football games and I'd watch the dance team come out and I was like, oh my God, I want to do that so bad. So the time came for me to try out and I worked so hard and I made the team and I was so stinking excited. And I lived in this really tight knit community and people were bringing over flowers and they were like, oh my gosh, congratulations. And I was so excited. And then I got the letter about how much this was going to cost. And like, there's the leotards, the shoes, the competition entrance fees, the jacket, like all this stuff. And I'm looking at this piece of paper and it was like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but it's almost like you watch yourself go through something. You're like, wow, that's happening right now. Like my mouth went dry, my hands were sweaty, my stomach fell through the floor. It was freaking horrific because there was no way we could afford this. So when I say we were poor, I want to be really clear. We would have like half a jar of honey and some bread my mother had made from scratch. The end. Like that's what we were sustaining on. And so there was just no way I could see to make this happen. So I started kind of getting resourceful and I got a job at the local mall. And if you guys don't remember what malls are, go watch Stranger Things. But so I got this job at like a little kiosk selling stuff nobody needed, but it was really fun. And I was out and I was making my $3.50 or whatever the heck minimum wage was at the time. And I got my first paycheck and I was so excited. So I'm going to go get this paycheck cashed at the supermarket where there was a service desk because I didn't have a bank account yet. I was 15, 16. So I take this check over to the service desk. And as we're walking into the grocery store, it's just me and my mom and my younger brother. We're the only ones living in the house. And my mom says, hey, Sarah, the strawberries are on sale. Can we get some? And I was like, oh, okay. I'm thinking of the deposit for my costumes. I'm thinking of the strawberries. I'm like, yes, we can do both. So I go get my check cashed and then I go to find them in the like the express checkout aisle and they're not there. And I'm like, where are they? Where'd they go? And I'm looking up and down all of the grocery aisles and I see my mom in line with a cart full of groceries. And I know it's a cart full of groceries she can't pay for. And I'm looking in there and it's like my brother's favorite breakfast cereal and some milk and some lunch meat for his lunches and some bread and the strawberries. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at the money in my hand and I'm like, I can pay for something I've wanted for as long as I can remember, or I can buy food for my family, but I can't do both. And I kind of made a decision that I was never going to be able to do both. And so I have 65 cousins. I became the first woman in my family to go to college. I moved from Sandy, Utah to New York City. I worked really hard at my career. I'm now this woman in a corner office. I'm like doing these tech projects that are amazing. I'm doing pitching for venture capitalist firms. I mean, it was, I'm like, who am I? What's happened? Right. Except I was miserable. I'd had 2 kids by now. They were 2 and 5. I missed them. I would see them in their pajamas in the morning and see them in their pajamas at night. I hated my life. I loved the people I worked with, right? But I was always sick. I was incredibly skinny, not in a good way. And there was one day in my office, back to your original question, where I was sitting in my beautiful glass office. My whole team is out there working hard. I'm now a senior vice president. And I'm listening to the clock in my office tick away the seconds of my life. And it's like, you can't get that one back. You can't get that one back. You can't get that one back. And all of a sudden, I realized my life was being run by a 16-year-old girl. There was a 16-year-old girl who had decided she could never take care of her family and herself at the same time. And so here I was providing this incredible income for my family. And I was literally sick every quarter, like really sick. Once a quarter, I'd get like knocked out sick. I haven't been sick in 5 years, right? Like it's like ridiculous. Yeah. So that day, I remembered what I had decided and realized if I was the person who'd made that decision, I could unmake it. And I got up from my desk and I went into my boss and I said, you're gonna lay me off and you're gonna restructure the organization like this. And he was like, I'm never gonna fire you. I'm like, yes, you are. You're gonna fire me. And this is how you're gonna do it. Right. And we worked it out and he did. And a lot of people are like, Sarah, did you buy the groceries or the dance costume? So just to follow up on that, everyone's always like, they get mad at
Close
me.
the
Like,
loop.
I know, I don't mean to leave you hanging. But so that day I bought the groceries and another woman in my community, another mom on the dance team had heard what had happened and she bought my costumes for me, which still chokes me up. So here I am all these years later, it still chokes me up. And I always tell women to listen to their intuition and their promptings. And I like kept having this idea to host an event in Park City, Utah. I live outside of New York City. Like, why? What is happening? It was 2019. It was November 2019, and I hosted this event. It was really cool because I'd gone to school at UCLA, so people from UCLA flew to Utah. People from the East Coast flew to Utah. It was this really beautiful moment, and a lot of people know this story. They know this is where my career came from. This is why I put more money in the hands of more women. And they know this is my grocery store story. And a lot of people have heard it, right? And so I'm now at this conference, I'm on the stage. And I said, how many people, know this story? And a lot of hands went up. And I said, how many of you remember the part where I say a woman paid for my costumes? And all the hands went up. And I said, she's right there. And I got to bring her up on stage and thank her publicly. And like, there was, oh my God, there was not a dry eye. I was crying. Like, it was so moving. And to have that moment with her meant so much because I got to literally put her on the stage and say, I would not be doing this had you not been the person with money, had you not been the person who heard what happened, had you not been the type of mother that knew there was someone out there who, and look what moms do when they have money. And it was so moving, especially because she passed away in 2020. She had 6 months to live at that time. We didn't know that. Right. But it was so great when we listen to ourselves, when we look at our past and understand our conditioning, what's possible.
Yeah.
That was the moment. I mean, here I'd been in all these boardrooms. I had done, all this pitching for venture capital. I understand when money is given to women and when it's not and why. And all of this company culture and all of these things I had worked on these financial projections. And I was always the only woman in the room. And I was like, this is not proprietary information. This is fourth grade math. What is happening here? Like, why are there not more women here? And that was the moment in remembering that moment in the grocery store and realizing the 16-year-old version of me was running my life. I decided to take all that expertise and teach it to women. Like, what are we even doing? This is ridiculous. This corporate world wasn't designed for us. It was designed for white men. I mean, what are we doing? Why are we even trying? This is ridiculous. Like, let's make our own reality. And part of that own reality is not explaining where we are at 2:00. I don't want to do that. I don't have to do that. You don't do that. Why would I do that? That feeling about like taking back that power, but then also teaching women how simple this is to actually do. Right? Do you need some skills to run your own business? Oh my gosh, you betcha. You do. And this is not armchair activity. I'm not one of those people who's like, just listen to your intuition and $1 million will fall from the sky, right? Like, no, listen to your intuition and it will guide you to the steps to take for that to happen, right? But really, that moment was when I knew what I was actually here to do, talk about keeping my agreement with the universe, was to make sure no other woman ever felt the way I did that in my office that day, to make sure no other woman felt the way my mother must have felt that day in the grocery store, that no other woman feels the way that beautiful soul who supported me had to feel like to take care of someone else's child at that level. Thank God we do. Right. But to support so many other women in either being that woman and being like, here's the money, go, because you have it. Right. And the impact that has on other people, because it completely changed the trajectory of my life that she did that. Right. And how can I make sure as many women as possible understand the power that actually lives within us when we say no, and the power that lives within us when we say yes to us, and how much that is actually supported when we allow ourselves to be supported.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered your question, but that's what I learned. That was my moment in corporate, right? And that was what I learned. And that's how things changed afterwards, is I think it's upon each of us to really look inside and say, who is running this life right now? Am I a scared 8-year-old? Like, who's running my life? And do I really care what Dan in accounting thinks about the fact that my kid is sick? Like, what am I even doing? I'm not going to remember Dan from accounting 3 years from now. You know what I mean? Like really getting honest with ourselves about what we're giving our lives away to and how damaging that is to us.
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations on all the things that you did. And I understand that there was support and kindness from people like that woman who helped you. Like you said, the first one of all your cousins to go through college and all of that. So congratulations on that. And the reason your story is so relatable is that each one of us has a certain version of that, different scales, maybe different impact. But I think that we all have that kind of younger version of ourselves that drives these thresholds of what we will and won't do. And are we going to let that version dictate our entire lives, or are we going to work past that and move on? And so, yeah, I think your story definitely left an impression on me. And that in your story, it wasn't just that you were operating off of the 16-year-old self, but also once you entered corporate, you were operating off of other people's definition of what it meant to be good at that role that you had, right? And I love that what you ended up doing was kind of just saying, nope, I reject that. This is how it's going to happen. And you actually, stormed into your boss's office and was like, nope, this is how it's going to be. So I love that. Just a quick pause. If you're listening and thinking, hey, I've lived this, I'd love to share my story. Or maybe you have something that you'd like to teach because you think it would really help another mom in STEM make her next career move, then I'd love to invite you to be a guest on Science Careers for Moms. I'm actually booking 2 kinds of conversations right now. So the first kind is with STEM moms who want to share their real story about maybe a career crossroads they faced or having to balance life as a scientist and a mom. What have you tried? What worked? What would you do differently? And then the second type of conversation I have on here are with career experts like recruiters, managers, coaches, or researchers who can share their practical strategies, scripts, or tools that moms in science and tech can access and use. So if either of those sounds like you, or you know someone who'd be a great fit on the show, then go to the link in the show notes or head to solveformom.com/podcast to apply and grab a recording spot. All right, back to the episode. I've heard you mention before, on your podcast and stuff, this term, the overgiver tax. And so I was just wondering, could you define what that is?
Yeah, it's that we train other people how to treat us, right? So if we are consistently cleaning up the messes of others and or overperforming without being asked, right? Without it being part of our job. And I'm not saying don't do an excellent job. Like I'm always very careful about that because sometimes people are like, well, I checked the boxes. That's what Sarah said to do. Yeah. Okay. I got you. Right. Of course we go and we turn in the most impeccable version of work. We show up with impeccable integrity, right? We keep our word, but we never live in incongruence. And what I mean by that is I consider money to have the same energy as love. And people are like, wait, what? I'm like, no, not like we love money like that. I mean, the definition kind of from the Course in Miracles, which I'm going to be super honest, I have not personally studied, but I've followed a lot of the work of people who do. And the idea inside of that course that I think that I personally believe in, people can take or leave, is this idea that there's only 2 things really operating us. And one is love and one is fear. And that love's job is to bring up what we're afraid of so we can heal it and turn that back into love. But that's the operation. It's love to fear, right? That's the deal. And love's job is to stoke fear for the point of healing. And so when I say money has that same energy, what I mean is money will show you where you have not yet healed. That's its job, right? It will. It's why we see people get rid of it. It's why we see people overspend it because they're like, I'm not healing that. I still hate my mom or whatever the thing is, right? That they're overspending or like rejecting money. And so it's really this beautiful moment to heal. And so the amount of love that is in your bank account, right, needs to match the amount of love you're putting into your work. And if that is not congruent, you will feel terrible. Whether you are way overpaid and you're watching Netflix all day, that feels awful and you will self-sabotage because it's not congruent, or you are way over delivering and you're not being paid for it. That lack of congruence knocks us out of alignment with our purpose. It knocks us out of alignment with our soul assignment, as I call it, right? It just does. So you can show up and do your job with beauty and love and integrity and focus and not over deliver.
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
Different things. Yeah.
They're very different things. And so I'm
Yeah.
not saying check the boxes and then go watch Netflix. Do it with care and love and joy. But when it comes time for something extra to be done, acknowledge it and say,
Hmm.
this could get done. What would you like to pay me for that?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think from your story, there's a beautiful example because that woman who helped you, she was using money for love, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
I understood the bigger concept of what you were saying and the alignment part. And actually, what I love about that, and I had not actually heard that before, so that was really interesting. But what I love about that is that you're kind of taking this qualitative thing. It makes it so much more tangible and concrete because you can kind of quantitate that now because money has that quantitative element to it and love is just it feels so it's a feeling. It feels vague. What kind of angers me is when I come across women and they feel like they had to choose. They had to choose path A or path B. I've met so many women who have regret. Biology puts a hard stop on when you can have kids, and they were so focused on their careers and they gave and gave and gave, and they found themselves, in their 50s not able to have kids. It was a kind of my experience too. I do have two boys, but I would have loved to have a larger family, and that just wasn't in the cards because of choices I felt like I had to make. And so I get really sad when I hear
Mm-hmm.
about women who have regret. They took path A and now they weren't able to grow the family that they wanted to grow, or they took path B and they felt like all of these years and long time that they did to develop their skills was kind of wasted, right? And I call them the mom force because it's this untapped potential, right? And they felt like, well, if I want to be a good mom, I have to sacrifice all of that. So going back to that statistic you gave,
Mm-hmm.
I came to this point where I had to make this decision, and we actually started putting down like my husband and I, where we're trying to decide, like, does it make sense? I had come to that point in my career where I could go to that next step and go back full time or stay with my kids. And we actually literally were like, okay, well, if you go back, you'd probably be aiming for a job of this caliber.
Mm-hmm.
This is the salary that'd be associated
Mm-hmm.
with it. Okay, the value of everything you're doing at home is this. Right
Mm-hmm.
now I homeschool my kids and I do work, but I do contract work and I consult independently. So that is sort of my arrangement that I have. But the thing that was factoring in was like, what is the value that I can put on being at home and witnessing and educating my kids and witnessing all these beautiful moments on top of just just things that felt priceless, to be honest. And so we took the salary that we thought I would be making if I went back to work full time in sort of the traditional job. Essentially what we realized was I would be outsourcing all the things that I was doing at home. So I was able to put a value to that. I was like, okay, well,
Yep.
my kids were in preschool at the time. So, okay, we'd be paying the preschool or daycare this amount. Okay, post tax, it's this. And then I have, after school care and blah, blah, blah. And we started putting all these calculations together and we realized, wait, at the end of the day, this is the chunk of change I would be bringing to the table versus this, and we made the decision that was most aligned for us.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my version of assigning, doing that money to love calculation, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
anyway,
it's so smart. It's so smart that you guys did that and actually put it down because there are a lot of people who are paying to work. It's like so
yeah,
counterintuitive. And listen, for some people, again, we can never, it's everybody's path, right? So for some people, the passion of working just outweighs that is beautiful. Thank goodness you know that. That is so wonderful because when we take a stand for our passions, when we make the best life decisions for us, like I said, we quietly give permission for other people to do the same. And that is gorgeous. And the example we set for children, beautiful. Like everybody really needs to lean into that passion. But there are people who also don't just do the math and go, oh my gosh, we're paying to work. And it's this really interesting phenomenon that can happen. So it's so great that you guys did that. And what you're speaking about, and I just had this overwhelming impression as you were talking there's someone listening or people listening, I don't know, where it's this idea that you only have path A or path B. And I am also going to assert that that is a false narrative as
yeah,
well. It doesn't feel like it. And I know that. And I want to be very empathetic and understanding as I say that. But one of the things I teach is wealth consciousness. And that doesn't always mean money, right? I'm talking about wealth in love, wealth in health, wealth in relationship, wealth in life, wealth in living, right? In being alive. And, what can happen a lot for people is this either or thinking starts to get in the way, and truly abundant people who see life as this abundant source, they always are looking for the third door. They don't believe there's only two paths. That's insane to them. They're like, no. And what happens the second we do that is it's almost like putting on night vision goggles. And all of a sudden, everything that was right there, it was already there. All the paths were there. All the clues were there. All the job opportunities were there. Everything was already there, but we couldn't see it. Then you put on I'm not doing that. You put on the night vision goggles by saying that. And all of a sudden, you can see everything that was already there that you couldn't see before. And so I really want to encourage people who are feeling like I only can do this or this, question that. Because really wealthy people who are alive in their own lives, they always say, how do I do both? Or where's the third door? And as soon as you start to live your life that way, you do start to see things that before you couldn't see. And that's been scientifically proven. It's called the reticular activating system in our brain. And anybody who's like, what the hell did she just say? I doubt it in this group. But if you just thought that, it's that whole thing. Someone's like, I'm going to pick you up later, and they have a red Honda. All of a sudden you're on the corner and there's 89,000 red Hondas, right? It's not like the dealership was like, oh, she's looking for a red Honda, send out a whole bunch more. No, your brain was like, oh, there's a red Honda out here. Let me find it. And you find it. Yeah. And it's the same thing. There's a third option here. Yeah. Let me find it. And your brain will find it for you. Yeah. It's so beautiful. And I think, I really wish they taught this in school because it's so real. Yeah. So I just really want anyone listening who's like, oh gosh, I'm right in the middle of point A or point B. My whole career, everything I've done, I don't want to sacrifice it. Then don't. Be a stand for yourself and for your children, and know that there is always a way to do both. There is always a way for that not to tax you to death emotionally and like literally physically. Like there's a way to do this, and you just have to be a stand and have some faith, right? But you have to be a stand that is true. And the second you decide that, all of a sudden the opportunities start showing up. But it's when we're so caught up in that fear and that terror that there are only these two. That is inaccurate. This is your life, and you would not be given the talents you have. You wouldn't be given the desires you have if they weren't yours to have and yours to exercise while you're here on planet Earth.
That is sort of the crux of, what I focus on. And it comes up so often. I have a name for it. It's called the forced choice trap.
Oh, I love that. That's gorgeous.
Yeah. But so and everything you were talking about, it sounds like manifestation, but it's really it's called life planning. And you said that you wish that they teach that in college or something. And I agree. I think that it's just so important, because if you don't work on like the whole life view that you have, like that abundance mindset you're talking about, you really do end up where you're living your life for your career. And again, no judgment if that's you being authentic, you're living your authentic self, and that's your purpose. But I think what you and I are reacting to is coming across all that regret, where the woman wanted to do both or something else. And she thought that door was closed, like there wasn't a door to do this other option. So that is what we're reacting to. But there's something else that I think you can elucidate for us. And that is, I think a lot of women are confused about the relationship between money and time. And I just like to get your thoughts on that. Can you clarify and help us understand where that confusion comes from?
Yeah, it's so good. So we have bought a lie, and that is that we have all the time in the world. Right? Which is, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I'll send that text. I'll call that all the things that we do. Oh, there's tomorrow. When the kids are older, when that happens, when like all those things we do. And actually time is the only finite resource we have, and money is infinite. People go, I'm sorry. No, it's not, Sarah. No, it is. It's infinite. Money is absolutely infinite. And the example I love to give is, last year for spring break, it was just my daughter and me at home. I had finalized my divorce. We were so excited. My oldest was in college, and I was like, do you want to go to Disney World? And she's like, are you serious? I'm like, let's freaking go. So we booked this delicious, gorgeous trip. We go first class. It's just the two of us. We had the best time, right? Like the best time. And people are like, oh my gosh, how much did that cost? I'm like, a lot. I was like, it took me 6 months to save, 4 days to spend. Totally worth it, right? And then I'll say, but where did the money go? Is it gone? Or did it go to the actors who made our lives so great, who get to have health insurance because they work there, the people who made up our room every day, all of the freaking chefs. I cannot believe how many chefs are employed. The engineers, right? the gardeners. Have you seen the landscape, right? The people working on the music, the choreographers, like the authors, all of the people. Did that money disappear? Or did it go to all of those people? And did it go to everything they need? And then where did it go from there? And one of the things I'll do, my conferences and stuff is I'll give, like on the front row of people, I'll give the person on the left $100 bill, and I'll have them hand it to the person next to them, the person next to them, right? And it just goes down the whole row. Every single person has touched this. And then I have it at the end. And I said, did this $100 bill lose any value in its entire trip? No, it didn't lose any value. But not only did it not lose any value, it added value to every single person it touched along the way. And it's still here. It's still here.
Yeah.
It's infinite.
Yeah.
And once we start to understand that, like actually money's the thing that's infinite, it's time that is finite. And we have those so screwed up. Right? That is so backwards for most of us. So I love that you asked that question, because I think it's really important for people to start to understand you really can make more money. All you have to do is solve problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll always pay money to solve a problem faster and with less pain. End of list. And so if you can figure out what that is for you, you can charge money for that. Period.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I love it. You shared a lot of clarity, and I love identifying the problems, but I just want us to have like maybe one sort of solution we can walk away with, because I think it's really hard for women to advocate when we're kind of in that moment. And so for the woman who's trying to like renegotiate things like her scope and her role or her pay or just getting more flexibility, and you gave us the mindset shift, but is there maybe like something you can spell out for us that you can offer for this woman who's trying to renegotiate?
What I do have people do, or what I find to be very valuable, and I use this almost daily when there's something I'm grappling with or something I want to send out, or a client has come to me with like, I don't know what to do here, right? One of those moments is I have us time travel, right? So you look 6 months into the future and you look back at this moment. 6 months in the future, you are so proud of yourself. You are like, I freaking nailed that. I was awesome. I got everything I wanted. That was incredible, right? You put yourself into that moment of success, and then you ask that version of you what she did to get there, and you'll get the answer. That to me is the most powerful negotiating tactic you can have, because we are so stinking wise. If we tap into our own wisdom, we never miss. It's so beautiful. So that really is my tactical advice, is put yourself in a moment of success and figure out how you got there.
Yeah. Yeah. What we do for others, just do it for
right. Yes, exactly.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Like I said, I could just ask you a ton more questions, but I'm going to have to stop it here. And so could you just tell me about where we can find you, all the places? I will absolutely list it all in the show notes.
Yeah, you can find me at sarahwalton.com, and that's Walton like the Walmart Waltons. Yes, sorry about that. And Sarah with an H, so sarahwalton.com. I have a YouTube channel. You can find me over there. It's The Sarah Walton, and the same with Instagram as The Sarah Walton. And I also have a podcast. It's called the Game On Girlfriend Podcast, because this isn't your practice life. The game is on. So those are all the different ways you can learn more about me or contact me. But yeah, there's so much that we can do as women, and I'm here for it.
That is so great. I really, really appreciate you being so generous with your time and being on the show. Okay, ladies, it's Sarah Walton, and she's the host of the Game On Girlfriend podcast, and she is a wealth of knowledge. And I think you're going to really enjoy hearing her podcast. So check out her website and check out her show, and we'll keep listening to you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a joy.
I hope today's episode will help you make your next right move as a scientist and a mom. And if you enjoyed it, would you share it with a friend or post it on your social media? Your voice truly helps other women in STEM find these conversations when they feel stuck. I also want to make this show an even greater experience for you. So it would be amazing to hear what you think when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to add this show to your playlist right now. Thank you for making my show a part of your day, and I'll see you soon for another episode of Science Careers for Moms.